The Galactic Combat Academy was known across the stars as the hardest military school in the universe. Inside its massive silver domes, cadets from hundreds of species trained to become defenders, explorers, and commanders. Every creature here came with pride, knowledge, and the belief that their species had the strongest warriors. But there was one thing all of them agreed on. No living being could hold two plasma swords at once and survive. The combat hall glowed with bright blue light. The training drones floated near the ceiling, recording every move of the cadets. Rows of young warriors stood in perfect formation, holding single plasma swords. The air was filled with the sound of energy humming, footsteps moving, and the echo of blades cutting through air. Commander Reth walked among the students. He was tall, with gray skin and four narrow eyes that glowed red when he was angry. He had served for more than 50 years and was respected by everyone in the academy. His voice was deep and calm as he spoke, yet each word carried a weight of authority. "Listen carefully," he said. "The dual plasma sword technique is not possible. It has been tested by hundreds of warriors. The energy from two blades cannot be balanced by any nervous system. It will cause overload, disorientation, and failure. No species can dual wield." The cadets nodded silently. Everyone accepted the rule. It was written in the Academy's handbook. Every year, a few tried, and every year they failed. At the far end of the line stood a human girl named Mira. She was smaller than most cadets, with short dark hair and sharp eyes that always seemed to be thinking. Humans were rare at the Academy. They came from a world classified as a death world, meaning it was full of danger and unpredictable life. Most alien cadets thought humans were reckless. Mira did not argue with them. She preferred to listen and observe. When Commander Reth spoke of the impossible rule again, Mira looked down at her hands. Her fingers tightened around the sword hilt. Something about the word impossible always made her curious. Humans, she thought, had been told many times that something was impossible. Yet history showed that they had a habit of proving otherwise. "Commander." Reth stopped near her row and noticed her thoughtful look. "Cadet Mira," he said. "Do you have something to add?" The other cadets turned to look at her. Some of them whispered, expecting her to stay quiet. Instead, she lifted her head and met the commander's eyes. "Sir," she said, her voice steady, "may I test the theory?" The hall went silent. Even the hum of the plasma blades seemed to fade for a moment. Reth raised an eyebrow. "You want to test dual-wielding?" "Yes, Commander," crossed his arms, almost amused. "You understand that no one has succeeded, not even the Carthans, whose neural systems process energy 10 times faster than humans." "I understand," she said, "but failure of others does not mean it is impossible. Maybe we are trying in the wrong way." Her words made several cadets laugh quietly. One tall reptilian cadet shook his head. "Humans always think rules don't apply to them," he whispered. Commander Reth silenced them with a gesture. "Very well, Cadet Mira. You have one chance. The safety field will remain on. If you lose control, the blades will shut down automatically. Proceed." Mira stepped forward. 2 plasma swords were placed on the floor by a mechanical arm. Their handles were silver, glowing faintly blue with power. She had watched others fail before. Usually when someone tried to hold both swords, their nervous system couldn't handle the energy feedback. The blades would flicker and deactivate, or worse, explode into a wave of plasma. She took a deep breath. The hall lights dimmed slightly as she picked up the first sword with her right hand. It hummed smoothly, responding to her heartbeat. Then she took the second sword with her left hand. Instantly, both blades grew brighter. The hum turned into a deep vibration. The sensors in the hall began to beep in warning. The cadets gasped. They had seen this stage before. Soon, the energy would spike, and the safety system would shut everything down. But this time, something different happened. Instead of forcing control, Mira closed her eyes. She let her body relax, not fight the energy, but move with it. The plasma blades pulsed in rhythm with her breathing. Slowly, she raised both swords into a balanced stance. The sensors started to stabilize. The readings on the instructor's screen showed perfect harmony between both energy cores. Commander Reth leaned closer, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. Mira opened her eyes and took a step forward. She moved one blade to block, the other to strike, creating a smooth circular motion. The blades cut through the air, leaving trails of light. Every swing was precise, controlled, and balanced. The sound of her motion filled the hall like music. The cadets stood frozen, unable to believe what they were seeing. Even the reptilian who mocked her earlier stared wide-eyed. The plasma did not destabilize. It obeyed her. When she stopped, both swords powered down softly. The air smelled faintly of ozone. She placed the weapons back on the floor and stood straight. Commander Reth walked forward slowly. His boots echoed against the training floor. "How did you do that?" he asked. Myra answered calmly. "I didn't fight the blades. I listened to them. The system isn't just energy, it's rhythm. You have to move with it, not against it." The instructor studied her face for a long moment. Every species has tried to control the energy through calculation. You used instinct instead. Mira nodded. Humans are used to chaos, Commander.
We adapt.
We feel patterns others try to calculate. Silence hung in the room. The cadets didn't know what to say. The rule that had stood for centuries was now broken by a single human cadet. Reth finally turned toward the class. "Lesson suspended," he said quietly. "Everyone out now." The students obeyed, whispering to each other as they left. Only Mira remained. Reth walked over to the training console and replayed the sensor data. The readings were perfect energy harmony at 98% stability. No recorded species had ever gone beyond 40. He turned back to her. "Cadet Myra, this will be investigated further. For now, you will report to the research wing tomorrow. Do not repeat this without supervision." "Yes, Commander," she said, saluting respectfully as she left the hall. She could still hear the whispers of the other cadets echoing behind her. Some called her lucky. Others said it must be a malfunction. But Mira didn't care what they thought. She walked through the long corridor of the academy, past glowing walls filled with alien languages, and looked out the wide window. Stars stretched endlessly outside, bright and silent. She smiled faintly. Humans were often seen as unpredictable and fragile among the stars. But today, she had reminded them of something important. Fragility didn't mean weakness. She looked down at her hands again, remembering the steady pulse of the blades. The feeling was strange but natural, like dancing with fire without getting burned. She knew there was more to learn, more to understand. But deep inside, she also knew this was just the beginning. In another hall, Commander Reth stood alone, still watching the recorded footage. The sensors confirmed what his eyes had seen. The human had done it. She had changed the meaning of impossible. He whispered to himself, "No species can dual-wield," they said. Then, after a long pause, he smiled slightly. Perhaps they never met a human. Outside the academy, the night side of the planet glowed under the light of 2 moons. A small figure walked under the stars, her reflection shining faintly on the metal floor. Myra didn't know yet, but her name would soon travel far beyond the academy walls. Across fleets and colonies, her act would become a story told by soldiers and scientists alike. The next morning, the Galactic Combat Academy buzzed with quiet talk. Word about Mira's training test had spread faster than a solar flare. Every corner of the academy, from the flight bays to the simulation rooms, echoed with the same story. A human had done the impossible. She had held 2 plasma swords without losing control. Most cadets refused to believe it. Some said it was a lucky accident. Others claimed the energy sensors glitched, but a few whispered something different. They said humans had strange instincts. They were born from a world full of danger, where quick thinking and chaos were normal. Mira arrived at the research wing early. The hall was silent and lined with glass rooms filled with glowing machines. Scientists and instructors from many species worked inside, testing new combat models and studying neural reactions. She felt their eyes on her as she entered. Humans were rare here, and now she had become the center of attention. Commander Reth waited near the center of the lab. He stood beside a tall silver platform surrounded by sensors and hovering drones. His voice was calm as always, but there was a trace of curiosity this time. "Cadet Myra," he said, "your demonstration yesterday created quite a discussion. We will repeat the test today under controlled conditions. Every movement will be recorded. You will be connected to bioscanners. Do you understand?" "Yes, Commander," she replied. A scientist with blue skin stepped forward. "Please remove your gloves," he said gently. "We will attach neural links to record your energy flow." "Ah!" Mira obeyed. Thin wires touched her skin, glowing faintly as they synced with her heartbeat. She could hear her pulse echo through the machines. It felt strange but not painful. Reth handed her to practice swords, replicas of the real plasma weapons, but less dangerous. "Show us what you did," he said. Mira nodded. She stepped onto the platform. Around her, holographic panels came alive, showing lines of data and moving waves of energy. The scientist watched closely. She took a slow breath, remembering the calm she had felt yesterday. One sword in her right hand, one in her left. The moment she activated them, both blades flared into bright blue light. The vibration began again, strong and wild. The monitor screamed warnings. Energy levels rising, neural load increasing. But she didn't panic. She closed her eyes and adjusted her posture. Her arms relaxed, her feet found balance. The humming changed pitch, softening as she matched her breathing to the rhythm of the blades. The readings on the screen started to steady. The glowing lines began to move in harmony. Scientists leaned forward, whispering to each other. "She's synchronizing both power cores." "Impossible. There should be interference. Her brain waves are matching the energy frequencies." Reth watched quietly, his eyes focused on her movement. Myra started to move, slow at first, then faster. Her right blade spun upward, while her left blocked an invisible strike. The movement was smooth, controlled, and full of rhythm. Every swing followed a pattern. Every motion matched the energy pulse. The air around her shimmered as she practiced, turning the room into a dance of light. After 5 minutes, she stopped. Both swords powered down. The energy in the air faded like a calm breeze after a storm. The scientists looked at each other, speechless. The readings showed perfect balance again. Reth stepped forward. "How do you keep them stable?" he asked. "It's about feeling, Commander," Mira answered softly. "The blades react to pressure. When you fight them, they fight back. But if you move with their rhythm, they become lighter. It's like listening to music and knowing the next beat before it comes." The scientists began to discuss quickly. They had studied neural reflexes, energy control, and balance for decades. Yet a simple explanation from a human cadet made more sense than all their theories. One alien scientist, with a shell-like head and 6 arms, looked at Reth. "Her method defies logic, Commander. But her results are real. We should conduct a combat test." Reth nodded slowly. "Prepare the combat simulation. We will see if her balance holds under pressure." Mira was guided to another section of the lab. The simulation chamber was a large metal dome with floating drones that could project enemies made of light and sound. Inside, gravity could shift, air pressure could change, and holographic foes could fight like real opponents. She stood at the center, while the walls around her began to glow. A voice spoke from the control room. "Simulation Level 3. Begin." 3 training drones appeared around her, each holding a glowing baton. They moved fast, attacking from different directions. Myra lifted both swords and blocked the first strike with her left hand. The impact sent a wave through her arm, but she flowed with it, letting the energy slide past instead of resisting. The second drone struck from above. She turned and parried, spinning to meet the third one. Her blades flashed, crossing paths without clashing. Each motion was quick, precise, and full of control. The drones adapted, increasing their speed. Sparks filled the air as the blades touched, and the hum of energy grew louder. From outside, the scientists watched with wide eyes. "Her reaction time is increasing. She's adapting to each movement," one said. "She's not calculating, she's feeling," another whispered. Commander Reth said nothing. His focus never left her. He could see it clearly now. She wasn't fighting the machines. She was moving as if she was part of the energy around her. The drones attacked together. Mira slid under a strike, then leaped up, crossing both swords in a spinning motion that cut through their defenses. The holographic enemies flickered and vanished. The chamber fell silent again. The floor lights dimmed. Mira stood still, breathing softly. Both blades powered down in perfect sync. The voice from the control room spoke. Simulation complete. All targets neutralized. Reth entered the chamber. He looked around at the faint scorch marks left by the drones. How do you feel, Cadet? Tired, she said, smiling faintly, but fine. He studied her closely. Do you realize what this means? Every known race has tried to control dual plasma. They built machines, suits, and neural links. You did it with instinct. I don't think it's just instinct, Mira said. Maybe it's something about humans. We learn by surviving. We don't need perfection. We just need rhythm and timing. The commander nodded slowly. Perhaps that is the secret. He turned to the observation window where the scientists still stood in shock. Document everything. The human method will be studied. As Mira stepped out of the chamber, she noticed other cadets watching through the glass walls. Some looked amazed, others looked doubtful. But one expression was the same on all faces: curiosity. Later that evening, Mira sat alone in her dorm. The stars outside her window blinked quietly. Her hands still tingled from the energy flow. She thought about what had happened. It wasn't about breaking a rule or proving someone wrong. It was about understanding something deeper. Humans had always been told what they couldn't do. Too weak to survive in alien climates. Too emotional to command large fleets. Too unpredictable to follow strict protocols. Yet here she was, standing in an academy built by species that thought humans were fragile, and she had done what none of them could. She smiled slightly at the thought. It wasn't pride that she felt. It was curiosity. How far could she go? What else could humans do that no one had thought possible? A soft beep interrupted her thoughts. It was a message on her console. She opened it and saw Commander Reth's name. Tomorrow, live combat test. Prepare yourself. You will face adaptive drones at level 5. Bring the same focus you had today. Do not fail. Mira closed the message and leaned back in her chair. The next test would be harder. The adaptive drones could change tactics in real time. No one below commander rank had ever passed that level. She looked at her hands again. The faint memory of the plasma rhythm still flowed through her muscles. She whispered to herself, they said, no species can. Let's see what happens when we stop listening to limits. The following day would mark the start of something greater. She did not know it yet, but her experiment would travel beyond the academy. Across the galaxy, warriors and scientists would begin to question their own limits. For now, Mira closed her eyes and rested. Outside, 2 moons hung over the academy, casting pale light on the metal towers. Somewhere deep inside the halls, Commander Reth watched the sensor data again, silent but thoughtful. He had seen hundreds of cadets in his life, from worlds stronger and faster than hers. But none of them had looked at the word impossible and treated it as a challenge instead of a wall. As the night deepened, one line from the report stood out on every screen in the research wing. It was the note written by Reth himself. Observation. Human cadet Myra demonstrated complete harmony between 2 plasma cores. Instinct-based synchronization, not mechanical. Results and explained success. Further study required. The scientists could not explain it. Records could not define it. But one fact was certain now. The rule was broken. The words "no species can dual-wield" no longer held the same power they once had. And the one who broke it was a quiet human who simply asked, "Define can't." The next sunrise over the Galactic Combat Academy painted the metal towers in shades of gold. Ships passed quietly above the clouds, leaving blue trails across the morning sky. Inside the academy, students moved in perfect order, heading toward their training halls. But beneath the calm surface, there was excitement and whispers everywhere. Everyone had heard about the human girl named Myra. They said she could do what no one else could. Some cadets wanted to see her in action. Others simply wanted to prove her wrong. But all of them knew one thing: the new test would decide if her success was real or just luck. Mira woke before dawn. She had not slept much. Her mind replayed the feeling of holding the blades, the hum of energy that had flowed through her arms. It felt almost alive, like the swords were breathing with her. She had learned something during that test, something she could not explain in numbers or formulas. When she arrived at the training ground, Commander Reth was already waiting. His uniform was crisp, and his expression serious, but there was a spark of curiosity in his eyes. He stood beside several officers and scientists, their devices glowing with light. Behind them, a large viewing window looked down into the testing arena. "Cadet Mira," Reth said, "today we will conduct a full observation. You will face Level 5 adaptive drones. They will respond to your movements, your energy output, and your strategy. Their purpose is to find the limit of your control." "Yes, Commander," she replied. One of the scientists, a tall insectoid named Vec, handed her a data band. "This will record your neural rhythm and muscle reaction. Please keep calm. The test may cause strong feedback." Mira nodded, fastening the band around her wrist. As she entered the arena, the lights dimmed, and a quiet hum filled the air. The floor shimmered, forming a circle of silver panels. Commander Reth's voice echoed from the speakers. "Begin when ready." He picked up the twin plasma swords. They felt heavier today, as if testing her confidence. She took a deep breath, remembering the calm rhythm that had guided her before. When she activated both blades, their glow filled the room. The first drone appeared. Then a second. Then a third. They surrounded her in a triangle, moving with perfect synchronization. Without hesitation, she stepped forward. Her right blade met the first drone strike, while her left deflected the second. Sparks filled the air as the energy collided. The third drone attacked from above, but Mira rolled aside, striking upward in one motion. The move looked effortless, but every part of her body worked in perfect timing. From the viewing room, Reth and the others watched carefully. The readings on their monitors were unlike anything they had seen. Mira's energy pattern flowed evenly between both hands. Her focus was steady. "There was no sign of overload. She's doing it again," Vec whispered. "Her brain is splitting tasks perfectly. It's as if each half is controlling one blade independently," other scientists replied. "That's impossible without a neural link. No being can divide focus like that." Commander Reth didn't speak. He only watched, his eyes narrowing slightly. Inside the arena, the drones increased speed. They began to adapt, learning her timing. One of them feinted left, another attacked from behind. The lights in the arena flashed red as the challenge grew harder. Mira's breathing slowed. She adjusted her rhythm, letting her movements flow like water. She didn't try to predict the drones. She simply reacted with instinct. Each strike met another perfectly. Each block flowed into the next. Her blades moved faster, the light swirling around her in bright arcs. She was no longer just fighting. She was dancing. After 10 minutes, the drones changed tactics again. They combined attacks, forcing her to move in tighter space. Sweat formed on her forehead, but her focus never broke. When one drone struck low, she jumped, spinning in midair. Her right sword cutting through the attack while her left struck the second drone. The third came from the side, but her motion carried her safely out of reach. The watching officers began to applaud softly, amazed by the display. Even the machines seemed slower compared to her. Finally, the drones powered down, defeated. The arena fell silent except for the sound of Mira's steady breathing. Reth's voice came again. "Test complete. Excellent performance, Cadet." The walls lifted, and Mira stepped out. Her hands trembled slightly, but she smiled. The scientists surrounded her immediately, asking questions. "How did you manage both blades at that speed? Did you plan your movements or act by reflex? Were you using rhythm again?" Mira tried to answer as simply as she could. "It's not something I plan. It's more like listening. Every motion has a sound, every strike has a beat. When I stop thinking and start feeling, everything fits together." The scientists exchanged confused looks. They wanted data, not poetry. But Commander Reth understood what she meant. He said, humans use instinct differently. Other species depend on structure and calculation. But humans survive through feeling and adaptation. Their bodies learn faster than their minds realize. One of the senior researchers shook his head. Are you suggesting her ability cannot be taught? Reth looked at Myra for a moment before replying. Perhaps it can be learned, but not in the usual way. You cannot measure instinct with equations. Later that day, the research team gathered in a conference hall. Holograms of Mira's combat data floated above the table. Her performance was clear, zero errors, full synchronization, no neural overload. The numbers were perfect, yet no one understood how it was possible. Vec pointed at the screen. Her left and right brain sections operate almost separately during combat. Each controls one sword, but still works in harmony. She is not dividing her mind. She is multiplying it, another researcher added. It's not mechanical control. It's emotional rhythm. She feels the timing instead of calculating it. Commander Reth crossed his arms. So what you're saying is, humans succeed where others fail because they rely on something beyond logic. The room fell silent for a moment. Then Vex spoke again. This could change everything we know about combat control. If we can understand how she does it, we can train others. Reth shook his head slightly. You can study her method, but remember, humans are unpredictable. They don't follow rules the same way others do. Meanwhile, Mira sat outside the hall, waiting. She didn't know what they were discussing, but she guessed it had to do with her ability. She looked down at her hands again. The faint hum of energy still lingered in her fingers, like a heartbeat that never faded. She thought about her home world, about the stories she had heard as a child. Stories of humans climbing mountains without tools, crossing oceans without knowing what lay beyond, and surviving storms that could tear cities apart. Humans had always faced impossible odds, and yet they kept trying. Maybe this was the same thing. Maybe dual-wielding wasn't just about strength or technology. It was about will. An hour later, Commander Reth stepped out of the meeting room. He looked at her and said, Cadet Myra, come with me. They walked through the quiet halls until they reached the observation deck. The stars stretched endlessly outside the glass walls. Reth said, Do you know why I allowed your first test? Mira shook her head. Because I asked. He smiled faintly. But also, because I wanted to see what would happen when a human faced an impossible rule. Every species I've taught follows the system. They obey the limits given to them. But humans treat limits as puzzles, not walls. She listened quietly as he continued. The Academy teaches that control is achieved through precision. You showed that it can also come from emotion. That is something none of us expected. Myra looked at the stars and said softly, Maybe emotion is another kind of control. When you care enough to try, you find balance. Perhaps that is your strength. He turned to her. The Council has decided to authorize a final test. You will demonstrate this ability before the full assembly tomorrow. It will not be practice. It will be combat against advanced adaptive drones in front of commanders from across the Alliance. Mira felt her heartbeat quicken. Understood, Commander. Reth placed a hand behind his back. You have already changed one rule. Tomorrow, you may change many more. Prepare yourself. As the commander walked away, Mira stayed at the window. The stars outside seemed to shimmer brighter, as if they were watching her. That night, she did not rest. She trained silently in her room with simulation sticks instead of plasma blades. Her body moved in rhythm, her mind calm and focused. Every swing followed a pattern only she could feel. When she finally stopped, the Academy was dark and quiet. She looked at her reflection in the mirror and whispered, They said no species can. But maybe we're not just any species. Outside, the stars continued to shine, distant yet alive. In that endless sky, Myra's small figure moved with purpose. Tomorrow would not just be another test. It would be proof that humans were more than what the galaxy believed them to be. And as the first light of dawn touched the Academy towers again, Mira stood ready, holding 2 training blades, her reflection glowing in the window. Morning arrived quietly over the Galactic Combat Academy. The two suns of the planet rose together, casting twin shadows across the silver towers. Inside the main hall, banners of different species hung from the high ceiling. Every commander, scientist, and senior cadet had gathered to witness something that had never happened before. The large arena in the center was brighter than ever, its walls covered in holographic panels. The air hummed with energy from hundreds of scanners and sensors. The entire academy waited in silence. Today was the day a human cadet would attempt something no one had dared before. Live combat trial using 2 plasma swords against adaptive drones. Commander Reth stood beside the viewing platform. His expression was calm, but inside he felt a strange tension. He had seen Mira's training many times now, and every time she surprised him. Still, this was different. This time, the whole Galactic Council would be watching. Failure would not only hurt Mira's record, but also question the Academy's judgment for approving the test. Mira entered the arena through the lower gate. Her uniform was simple, fitted with protective armor on her chest and arms. The lights reflected off her calm face. She looked up at the crowd, but did not focus on anyone. Her eyes moved only toward the 2 plasma swords waiting on a table in the center. She walked toward them and stopped. The silence of the crowd felt heavy. From the command deck above, Reth's voice echoed through the hall. Cadet Myra of Earth. Today you will demonstrate your dual-wielding ability under combat conditions. You will face 5 adaptive drones. Each will analyze your movements and respond in real time. Are you ready? Yes, Commander, she said clearly. Begin when ready. The drones activated one by one. They rose from the floor, floating silently, their metallic frames glowing with blue light. They formed a circle around her. Each drone carried an energy blade, and their sensors locked onto her instantly. Mira took a deep breath and picked up the first sword. The familiar hum filled the air. Then she lifted the second one. The moment both blades came alive, the arena's sensors began to flicker with data. The first drone moved fast, swinging down from above. Mira blocked it with her right sword, sliding backward smoothly. The second attacked from the side, and she turned to meet it, spinning both blades in a cross motion. Sparks flew where the plasma met. The crowd gasped softly. The drones changed formation, attacking in pairs. Their movements were sharp and unpredictable. But Mira stayed calm, her steps light, her eyes focused. Her right sword flowed like wind. Her left moved like water. Together, they created a rhythm of motion no one had seen before. Every swing of her blades left a trail of blue light. Every block sent a spark into the air. She was surrounded by enemies, but it looked like she was dancing rather than fighting. Her movements were precise, full of speed but never wild. In the command deck, Commander Reth and the scientists watched the readings. The neural charts showed perfect balance again. Energy stable. Heart rate normal. Coordination flawless. She's beyond prediction, one scientist said quietly. The drones can't learn her pattern because there is no fixed pattern. She changes rhythm with every strike. Another added, she's using instinct as her weapon. Down in the arena, the battle grew faster. The drones combined their attacks, adjusting angles and speeds. Mira began to move even quicker. She ducked, rolled, and leaped. Her right sword deflected an attack, while her left sliced through another drone's shield. 2 drones retreated. Analyzing her speed, they switched to high-frequency mode, moving almost too fast for the human eye. But Myra didn't falter. She closed her eyes for one short moment, listening to the hum of their engines. Then she moved. Her blades flashed like lightning, catching both drones mid-strike. The energy from their cores burst into the air in a swirl of bright blue light. The crowd gasped again. 3 drones remained. They spread out, moving in a triangle. The floor of the arena shifted, forming uneven platforms. The simulation added more difficulty, changing gravity and wind speed, but Mira adapted instantly. She jumped from one platform to another, her feet landing softly each time. One drone shot forward, trying to hit her from below. Mira flipped over it and brought both blades down, cutting through its sensors. It fell to the ground in sparks. The next one attacked from behind, but she turned sharply, crossing her swords in a block so strong it sent the drone flying backward. The third came from above, swinging fast. She ducked under the attack, sliding across the metal floor, then struck upward with both blades in one fluid motion. The final drone froze midair, its sensors flashing red. Then it powered down and dropped to the ground. Silence filled the hall. The battle was over. For a moment, no one moved. Then the lights returned to normal, and the crowd began to applaud. The sound grew louder, echoing through the whole arena. Myra lowered her blades slowly. Her breathing was steady. Her uniform was marked with light burns, but she stood tall, calm. An unshaken Commander Reth stepped forward to the edge of the command deck. Test complete. Results success. Scientists cheered softly. The council members whispered among themselves, taking notes. Reth looked at Mira and felt a rare pride. In all his years at the academy, he had never seen such a display of focus and grace. He turned to the audience and said, "You have witnessed the first successful dual-wield combat demonstration in galactic history. The cadet has proven that what was once considered impossible can be achieved." After the applause faded, Mira placed both swords back on the table. She bowed respectfully toward the commander and the audience, then exited through the lower gate. Outside the arena, the corridors were filled with cadets waiting for her. Some smiled in admiration, others looked shocked. A few even clapped as she walked by. One cadet, a tall avian species with bright feathers, approached her. "That was amazing," he said. "How did you do that? The drones couldn't even touch you." Mira smiled softly. "It wasn't about speed. It was about rhythm. You don't fight the flow, you become part of it." The cadet tilted his head, still confused but impressed. "Humans really are strange." "Maybe," Mira replied, "but sometimes strange works." Later that day, Commander Reth met her in his office. The walls were covered with maps and records from past wars. He stood near the window, looking out at the distant sky. When she entered, he turned to her and said, "You made history today, cadet. Thank you, Commander." He walked closer, his tone thoughtful. "Do you understand what this means? You broke a rule written centuries ago. Every species believed it was absolute truth, and yet you proved them wrong." Mira looked at the floor for a moment before replying. "I didn't do it to break rules, sir. I just wanted to understand why it couldn't be done." Reth nodded. "That curiosity is what makes humans dangerous in the best way. You don't accept limits, you question them." He tapped the control panel on his desk. A holographic image appeared, showing the data from her test. "The council has approved further research on your technique. They want you to help develop a new training model based on your method." Mira looked surprised. "A training model?" "Yes," Reth said. "It will be called the Human Dual-Wield Protocol. You will lead the demonstration group. Other cadets will learn from you." She felt both nervous and proud. "I will do my best, Commander." I know you will," he said. "But remember, the galaxy watches now. They will test you again, harder each time. Stay focused." Myra nodded. "I'll be ready." As she left his office, she felt a quiet satisfaction. She had come to the academy as a small, unnoticed human cadet. Now her name was known across the halls. But she didn't let pride cloud her thoughts. She knew this was only the beginning. That evening, she went back to the training hall. The place was empty now, the lights dim. She picked up one of the practice swords and swung it slowly. Then she lifted the second one, feeling the familiar hum. She closed her eyes and listened to the sound of both blades. The rhythm was steady, calm, alive. She moved gracefully, practicing alone under the quiet glow of the lights. Outside the hall, few young cadets watched through the glass window. They whispered softly to each other. "Do you think we can learn it too?" one asked. "Maybe," another replied. "If she can, maybe anyone can." Inside, Mira smiled slightly. She didn't know they were watching, but she hoped they would try. The next day, her performance video spread through every fleet and academy across the Alliance. Soldiers replayed the footage, scientists studied the readings, and instructors updated their lessons. The phrase "no species can dual-wield" was removed from the combat manual. In its place, a new line appeared. Human Cadet Mira of Earth demonstrated successful dual-wield synchronization. Result possible. Back on the Academy's highest tower, Commander Reth stood watching the sunrise again. The stars faded as the light grew stronger. He thought of all the times he had said something was impossible. Then he smiled slightly and whispered to himself, "Define can't." Down below, Mira trained quietly, unaware of how far her influence had reached. Her movements were calm, her focus strong. The hum of her blades filled the hall like a song of balance, courage, and quiet determination. The story of the human who broke the rule was just beginning to spread. Across the galaxy, those who once believed in limits now began to question them, and it all started with a girl who refused to accept the word impossible. The Galactic Combat Academy had changed. What was once a quiet institution of rules and repetition had now become a place of questions and discovery. And at the center of this change stood Mira, the human cadet who had proven that limits were only illusions. Weeks had passed since her duel against the drones. Her performance had spread through every fleet, every academy, and even the council stations that rarely cared for combat training. For many, she was no longer just a student. She had become a symbol of possibility, yet Mira herself stayed humble. Every morning, before the suns rose, she would enter the empty hall, the same one where she had once been doubted. She still trained alone, repeating her movements in silence. Her two plasma swords moved in harmony, glowing softly in the dim light. Each motion was slow, precise, and balanced. She never stopped learning. One morning, Commander Reth entered the hall quietly. He stood at a distance, watching her. She did not notice him at first. Her focus was complete. When she finally finished her practice, she turned and saw him. She smiled lightly. "Still training?" he asked. "Yes, Commander," she said. "There is always something new to learn." Reth nodded. "That is true. The Council has sent new orders. They want you to represent the Academy at the Intergalactic Combat Exhibition next month. It will be held on Vega Prime. Every major species will send their best fighters. You will perform your dual-wield technique before them." Mira looked surprised but calm. "That is an honor, sir. It is also a responsibility," he said. "They will not all cheer for you. Some still believe what you did was luck, not skill. You will have to prove them wrong again." "I understand," she replied. Reth looked at her closely. "You changed the Academy, Mira. Now you will have the chance to change the galaxy. Do not waste it." She nodded with quiet determination. The following days were filled with preparation. The Academy technicians upgraded her combat suit for better stability. Scientists studied the energy flow of her dual blades, trying to understand how her rhythm matched the plasma frequencies. Many failed to explain it, but they still tried to copy it. Other cadets now trained under her guidance. The human dual-wield protocol was becoming real. Mira walked among them, correcting their stances and timing. She spoke with calm patience, explaining that the secret was not strength, but awareness. One young cadet, reptilian named Kesh, struggled to hold two blades. His movements were stiff. Mira stopped beside him. "Don't fight the balance," she said gently. "Listen to the sound of the blades. They will tell you how to move." Ash frowned. "Listen to the blades." "Yes," she said with a small smile. "Every motion has a rhythm. If you hear it, you can follow it. Do not control it. Flow with it." He tried again, slower this time. His movement improved slightly. Mira nodded. "Better. Keep practicing." The students admired her. They had never seen an instructor who spoke so softly yet carried so much power in every movement. Even Commander Reth sometimes watched her teach, knowing she had become more than just his student. She had become a leader. When the day of the exhibition arrived, the Academy's ship carried Mira and her team to Vega Prime. The planet shone like a jewel in the darkness of space, surrounded by floating rings of crystal dust. The great arena on its surface could hold 1,000,000 spectators. Banners of different worlds waved in the air. Mira stepped out of the transport and felt the hum of the crowd. Every major species was there: the towering Archons with their armored skin, the graceful Velians with their glowing eyes, and the silent mechanical core who recorded every detail with perfect memory. Commander Reth walked beside her. "Do not let the noise distract you," he said. "Remember why you are here." "I remember," she said. "To show them what is possible." Inside the grand arena, the stage was circular, surrounded by transparent barriers. Holographic projectors floated overhead, displaying her image to the galaxy. When the announcer's voice echoed through the speakers, the crowd fell silent. "Presenting Cadet Myra of Earth," the voice said. "Representing the Galactic Combat Academy. Performing the first confirmed dual-wield plasma demonstration." Myra walked to the center of the stage. The two plasma swords waited there, resting on a stand. She picked them up carefully, feeling the familiar weight in her hands. The sound of the blades came alive with a soft hum. The holograms lit up, and her opponents appeared: 3 advanced simulation drones designed by the Vega Council. They could mimic the fighting style of any species. Each was programmed to test her limits. The signal flashed. The battle began. The first drone moved quickly, its twin blades cutting through the air. Myra stepped aside, letting the wind of its attack pass her. She turned, striking back with both swords in a cross motion. Sparks filled the air. The crowd watched in awe. Her movements were beautiful, like flowing water. Every step, every turn, every strike felt perfectly timed. The drones combined attacks, trying to trap her between them. She spun, blocking one with her left sword and deflecting another with her right. She dropped low, kicked off the ground, and sliced upward in a double arc. 2 drones fell instantly. The third drone switched to adaptive mode. It copied her stance, matching her rhythm perfectly. The crowd gasped as both moved in sync, mirror images of each other. For a moment, it seemed like a perfect balance. Then Myra smiled faintly. She closed her eyes, her breathing slowed. Her body began to move in a rhythm that no machine could read, a pattern based on instinct, emotion, and flow. The drone hesitated for half a second, unable to predict her next move. That was all she needed. She turned sharply and struck with both blades in one swift motion. The drone's systems failed, and it collapsed to the floor. Silence filled the arena for a long moment. Then the applause began, soft at first, then louder, until the sound shook the air. Myra stood still, her swords lowered. She looked up at the massive crowd and bowed her head in respect. Commander Reth watched from the side, pride shining in his eyes. "She did it again," he whispered to himself. The announcer's voice returned. "The human cadet has once again proven that limits exist only in the mind. Let it be recorded: dual-wielding is no longer impossible." After the event, Myra was invited to meet the Galactic Council. The chamber was vast, filled with leaders from dozens of worlds. They thanked her for her demonstration and asked her many questions about human training methods. She answered every question with calm honesty. One council member, an old Velian elder, leaned forward and said, "You changed how we see humans. For centuries, your kind was seen as reckless. Now we see something else: possibility. Thank you, but I did not do this alone. My instructors guided me. My academy believed in me." Commander Reth, standing nearby, nodded approvingly. The council leader smiled. "Still, you began this change. What will you do now?" Myra thought for a moment before replying, "I will teach others. There are many who still think they cannot do something because they were told it was impossible. I want to show them that they can." The elder nodded slowly. "A good answer. The galaxy needs such voices." Months later, Myra returned to the academy. She was no longer just a cadet. She had been promoted to instructor, the youngest in the academy's history. Her classroom was always full. Cadets from different species came to learn her technique. She watched them struggle and learn, just as she once did. When they failed, she reminded them with a gentle smile. Failure is not the end. It is part of learning. One day, during a training session, a young student asked her, "Instructor, is it true that once no species could dual-wield?" "Yes," she said. "That was the rule. And you broke it. She looked at the two swords resting beside her and smiled. I did not break it. I just asked a question. When someone told me I couldn't, I asked, define can't. The students laughed softly, inspired by her words. That night, as the sun set beyond the academy walls, Mira walked to the observation deck. She looked at the stars, each one shining bright in the endless dark. She thought of how small humans were compared to the galaxy, yet how much they could still change. Commander Reth joined her, standing silently for a while. Then he said, "You started something that will last for generations." "Maybe," she said, "but others will carry it forward. I just took the first step," he smiled. "That is all it ever takes." They stood together, watching the stars. The academy lights glowed softly below them. In the distance, the sound of training echoed through the hall's cadets, swinging twin blades. Learning to move in rhythm, learning to believe in themselves. The old rule was gone. A new one had taken its place, written in the academy's records and spoken in every training hall.